Are you ready for some eye-opening truths? Konstantin Kisin, who has always been known for being the voice of reason in today's woke-dominated discourse, delivered one of the best speeches you'll ever hear, during which he exactly pinned what's wrong with our modern societies, calling out the wokeism that's reshaping every aspect of our lives. What you're about to witness is not just a speech, it's a call to action at a critical moment in our modern history. But before I delve deeper into it, watch the clip.
Trigger warning, I'm going to talk positively about Christopher Columbus. I know he committed some pretty sizable microaggressions, but he also changed the world. Do you know why he changed the world? Yeah, he tried to reach India and by accident discovered America. But why go west to India? Europeans had been trading with India and China for centuries via the Silk Road. Why risk your life to go out on a limb? There were many reasons, of course. But the main one was the decision to try and reach Asia by going west was not made out of choice. Europe was desperate. Only a few decades prior, in 1453, the Ottomans sacked Constantinople and they cut Europe off from the Silk Road. The West was facing a huge challenge and a new threat, no smaller than the one we face today. And like us, what they needed was another way. But when Columbus took his idea to go west to India, to the kings and queens of medieval Europe, they laughed at him. They didn't laugh at him because he was some misunderstood genius. He wasn't Galileo. They laughed at him because he was wrong. The reason Columbus discovered America is not that he'd worked out that the earth was round. The reason is that he massively underestimated the size of the planet. They were right to laugh at him. He was wrong. But he took that wrongness. He persuaded 90 other men to get into 3 boats smaller than the size of this stage and sail into the unknown. And he persuaded Queen Isabella of Castile and King Ferdinand of Aragon to fund his voyage. The moral of the story is, it doesn't matter how wrong you are, as long as you've got rich friends. That's not the moral of the story. The moral of the story is, the history of our civilization was not made by people who always got everything right. It was made by people who'd made mistakes too. It was made by people who dared to believe that they could solve the problems they faced. The story of the West is a story of audacity.
By the way, subscribe for more discussions like this. Christopher Columbus and the early explorers and settlers who ventured to the Americas exemplified the bold and adventurous spirit of their era, a contrast to the often cautious and risk-averse attitudes widespread in today's world. They were driven by a remarkable sense of curiosity and the pursuit of knowledge, which led them to go on voyages into the unknown territories across the globe. This period, known as the Age of Discovery, was characterized by a strong desire to explore and map the world, fueled by both the promise of new trade routes and the potential for unprecedented economic opportunity. The explorers of this era were motivated by the potential for personal and national glory, believing that their journeys could bring about major advancements in human understanding and global connectivity. The mentality of those explorers also included a readiness to face the unknown with limited resources and technology. Their journeys required a level of bravery and resilience, which are deeply admired but are clearly missing qualities in our modern times. Reflecting a period when the drive to expand human knowledge involved great personal boldness, one cannot deny that most people that moved to the New World were risk takers, and I think such qualities helped to shape our country into the greatest civilization in existence.
The big debates of the last decade, the culture war, the polarization, are about one thing and one thing only: the future. There are people like us in this room who believe that our future is to be prosperous, powerful, and influential. We are the majority. But there are also some people whose brains have been broken by an excess of education, who believe that our history is evil, that we do not deserve to be great, we do not deserve to be powerful, that we must be punished for the sins of our ancestors. To them, our past is abominable, our present must be spent apologizing, and our future is managed decline. My message to those people is simple. How dare you? You will not steal my son's dreams with your empty words. Remember your grandparents? Remember them? If I could go back in time and transport the grandparents of your grandparents into this room, just 4 generations ago, they would think they'd been abducted by aliens. That's the progress we've made. We haven't made that progress by whining and acting like victims. We've made that progress by unleashing the creativity and talents of people like us here in this room. But I do think we've forgotten what adventure is. When Columbus and his men got on those boats and took a journey into the unknown, they sailed to certain death. You know why? It's not because they were braver than you and I. It's because they knew something we've forgotten. All death is certain.
The left's negative portrayal of the future can only be described as pure doomsdayism. Their approach paints a bleak picture of what lies ahead, leading to a despair rather than inspiring action. By consistently focusing on catastrophic outcomes such as irreversible climate change, extreme economic inequalities, and societal collapse, these narratives reduce the enthusiasm and optimism necessary for individuals, especially young people, to dream and plan for a better future. Now, we should think about these, but alarmist messaging, while sometimes effective in drawing attention to a serious issue, risks inducing a sense of helplessness and fatalism. You see, when people believe that dire consequences are inevitable, they feel less motivated to engage in constructive behaviors or support policies that could mitigate or change these outcomes. Focusing solely on the negatives also overshadows the progress that had been made in various fields like medicine, technology, and social reforms. This progress demonstrates human capacity for innovation and problem solving, proving that positive change is not only possible, but constantly occurring.
And so I say to our friends in the world of business, you've made your fortunes by maximizing your returns on your investments. We are in the fight of our lives. There is no greater return on your investment than to protect and preserve our civilization. And so I invite you to follow in the footsteps of Elon Musk and Paul Marshall and Ben Dello and many of you here who are using your fortunes for the betterment of humanity. I say to our friends in the media, truth matters. We are in the fight of our lives. There is more to life than clicks and downloads. Let's move beyond the culture war, where all we do is bat away the litany of slanderous allegations about our history. Let's set the agenda. Let's remind our fellow citizens why we are where we are. Let's remind them that we are the most tolerant, open, and welcoming societies in the history of the world. We're not embarrassed about our past. We're proud of it. And to my colleagues in new media especially, I say this. The legacy media is dying for a reason. They cannot be saved. They cannot be reformed. Let's stop complaining about them and start building the media empires of the future ourselves. I say to our friends in education and academia, I understand that many of you feel like the French resistance or Soviet partisans, stuck behind enemy lines, undermanned and outgunned. And you're right, we are in the fight of our lives. So keep fighting for every young mind you can. It will be worth it.
Konstantin perfectly summarizes the issues we're facing in our modern societies, and they shouldn't be regarded as separate issues because it is a collective set of problems that affects the overall fabric of society. He's right when he says Western civilization is at a pivotal crossroad. As such a critical juncture, the trend towards self-loathing and introspective criticism, particularly about past actions and current inequalities, risks worsening the issues rather than fixing them. While it is crucial to critically evaluate and learn from past mistakes, many of the positives that the entire world enjoys today is the result of the West's continuous efforts towards improving human life. The principles of democracy, human rights, scientific inquiry, and artistic expression that have emerged from the civilization have shaped the world for the better. So instead of going on a self-loathing campaign where everyone competes to hate themselves the most, we should encourage people to take pride in their country's achievements. This doesn't mean that we shouldn't acknowledge our flaws, far from it. We should embrace them, but should not be defined by them.
Finally, I say to our friends in politics, many of you here are conservatives. I'm not. I look terrible in tweed. That's why I identify as politically non-binary. But I can tell you conservatives something. You will never get young people to want to conserve a society and an economy that is not working for them. We will not overcome woke nihilism as long as young people are locked out of the housing market, unable to pair up, unable to have kids, unable to plan for the future. I know it's difficult, and I know that whoever solves the housing crisis may well pay the price at the ballot box. This is true of many pressing issues too, or at least you think it is. But you did not get into politics to get re-elected. You got into politics to make a difference. We are in the fight of our lives. And if courage means anything, it means doing the right thing and being willing to take the punishment if you have to. Let me say it again. All death is certain. We do not get to choose whether we live or die. We only get to choose whether we live before we die. Thank you very much.
Well, those are principles that politicians from previous generations used to run by. Today it's a completely different game. The political landscape has undergone significant transformation, with shifts in values that starkly contrast the earlier generation's approach. In the past, politics was viewed as a service to the community, where personal sacrifice and principled stands were highly valued. However, the current era sees politics increasingly dominated by personal ambition, which is superseding public service. More and more politicians are viewing their roles as a stepping stone to greater power and personal achievement, instead of it being a duty to the people that got them in power in the first place. The influence of pressure groups and lobbyists has also grown exponentially, shifting policy directions according to the agendas and funding of power interests over the public good, which is why we're seeing policies that serve the interests of a few rather than the collective needs of people. I think Konstantin does a great job in laying a clear pathway on what should be done to protect our societies from the wicked plans of the woke left. What are your thoughts on this? Did Konstantin take it too far with this speech? Let's get the conversation rolling in the comments down below.